New York Times released an amazing story here. I couldn't believe this when I came across it. Housing boss earns $1 million to run shelters despite a troubled past. Some executives at nonprofit groups that operate New York City homeless shelters are benefiting from the plight of the people they serve. So let me give you some of this here. They say the following. Soon after Jack A. Brown III quit his job at a private prison company, his former employer accused him of fraud. A few years later, after Mr. Brown started a nonprofit to run halfway houses, a federal audit found that it had failed to deliver key services. The New York State comptroller concluded in another review that Mr. Brown had shown a disturbing pattern of ethical violations. None of that history seemed to bother officials in New York City. Since 2017, as homelessness has risen to record levels, the city has awarded more than $352 million to a nonprofit run by Mr. Brown to operate shelters. The money is meant to help homeless people regain their footing, but it has benefited Mr. Brown too. The nonprofit has channeled contracts worth at least $32 million into for-profit companies tied to Mr. Brown, allowing him to earn more than $1 million a year, the New York Times found. Millions more have gone to real estate companies in which he has an ownership interest. He has also hired his family members and given employees perks such as gym memberships and cars. So I think I have some more here for you. Let's see. I do. So they go on to say Mr. Brown started a security guard company that polices his own shelters, a maintenance company that makes repairs in them, and a catering company that feeds the residents, records showed. Mr. Brown heads each one of them. In 1 year alone, the for-profit companies that Mr. Brown ran spent more than $460,000 on gym memberships for employees. His mother, sister, aunt, and niece have all worked at the nonprofit in addition to his brother, who has collected a six-figure salary. At the same time, residents at one of his largest shelters in Mr. Brown's operation, Beach House in Queens, said they lived with vermin infestations, creeping mold, and violent fights in the hallways. Wow. Now, by the way, I'm even going to go a step further than what the New York Times said here, because when they say, oh, we spent $460,000 on gym memberships for employees, no, that's probably what it's listed as, but in reality, a lot of that money, if not all of it, is just being either put into his own bank account or dispersed to him and his family. So, but, they list it as, oh yeah, that's what it's going for. So the scam is, you run the homeless shelters, but then all of the businesses that you need to contract with in order to take care of all the necessities in the homeless shelters, he runs those too. And so in theory, I guess the homeless shelter itself is nonprofit, but then he creates all these for-profit companies which then sell whatever it is, beds, food, everything, maintenance, sell it all to yourself, and then run out the back door with all the money. And again, I think that he would have gotten away with it had it not been the abysmal conditions that some of these people are living in. That, you can't have mold and fungus, it can't be dirty, you can't have rat infestations, you can't not cover the basics and not have a decent place, and then expect there's not going to be a critical eye put on you. Then a critical eye was put on him and they're like, oh shit, the $1 million is what we know about. My guess is he's probably got way more than that per year, and he's just been running out the back door with all the money. And what you see here is another perfect example of corruption, this time at, more the local level, where city officials have relationships with the people who run the nonprofits. They give them, the contracts, and then they self-deal and get massively rich off it, and you give a cut back to the politicians, and the politicians give you more money, and the entire time, who's being underserved? Of course, the homeless people. The homeless people. So, it sounds crazy to say, but what we're looking at here is effectively a homelessness industrial complex. Homeless industrial complex. That's insane. Said it once, I'll say it again, and I'll say it a million more times, and you've all heard me now. I'm kind of becoming a broken record on this, but corruption should be punished as severely as the worst crimes. It should be punished as severely as rape and assault and murder, because that's really how you destroy the fabric of a nation. I don't care what the social conservatives say, the hardcore fundamentalist Christians who are like, no, it's all, we've turned our back on Jesus and now the sun is setting on us. No. It's all about the money. It's all about the corruption of the ruling class and the rigging of the system against regular working people. And that's what we see. People at the bottom of the economic ladder and in the middle of the economic ladder get obliterated by a system that isn't looking out for them and hasn't looked out for them for a very, very long time, if ever. And so, prosecute these people, throw them in jail, totally reform the system, bottom up, redo it. I mean, it should be, I mean, I floated this before, but housing should be a right, number one. Number two, I don't see why people wouldn't, you know those like mini houses? I don't see, you actually save money in the long run as well, so it's fiscally and economically responsible on top of being morally and ethically correct. If you just give homeless people a roof over their head, give them a house, give them one of those tiny houses. Nobody's saying give them a mansion with a pool in the back or whatever, just bare minimums, basics. But no, they'd rather have a homeless industrial complex and get massively wealthy, ripping off taxpayers and screwing homeless people into living in degradation as far as the eye can see. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.